against the A's. The NCAA announced Wichita, Kansas, in addition to Dayton, Ohio, will serve as the opening round sites for the 2027 and 2028 men's NCAA basketball tournament.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here he goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chambers delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
And good afternoon and welcome into another edition of the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. We're having to kind of finagle some things here a little bit. As you can see, I'm not in my normal spot, not in my normal setup, whether that be at my home studio or in the Tide 100.9 studio. We're in the Tide 100.9 production room because I don't have a producer right now. So no big deal. We're just hanging out here today. We're going to be hanging out here today on the stream. I am hosting, producing, and recording this stream all by myself here. So this is going to be a lot of fun here as we take a look here at the Deep South College Football Show here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. I know we are the home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports, but here on the Deep South College Football Show, we've been doing previews, breakdowns, and predictions for all 16 teams here in the Southeastern Conference. And today, just because I have no producer, doesn't mean we're going to do anything differently here. Today, we're going to talk about the Tennessee Volunteers. As you can see, Tennessee season preview led by head coach Josh Heupel there, entering, I want to say, how long has he been at Tennessee? He's been at Tennessee since 2021, I want to say. Yeah, 2021. He's beaten Alabama twice, and for a lot of people in Knoxville, that's gotten him quite a ways here. However, when you look at the Tennessee Volunteers, that doesn't necessarily, beating Alabama is good. That was a great win in 2022 and a little bit surprising that they were able to get that job done yet again there in 2024. However, that goodwill only gets you so far. Josh Heupel, they had a really good 22 season that ultimately ended in some heartbreak, losing to Georgia and to South Carolina in those two matchups there late in the season. 2023, they take a little bit of a step back, right, with Joe Milton at quarterback. 24, they go make the college football playoff with Nico Iamaleava leading the charge at quarterback. And so entering 2025, right, we're looking at Tennessee and we're saying, hey, you know what? I could see Tennessee being a very dangerous team, kind of trying to build off of a playoff win from the year prior. And then we get to spring ball, and Tennessee suddenly – their starting quarterback is holding out of spring practice due to some NIL-related disputes, right? And you're thinking, okay, it's kind of the first time we've seen this in college athletics, or at least publicly seen it in college athletics. So what's going to happen here with the University of Tennessee? Are they going to cave and give the money to Nico Iamaleava, thereby saying, hey, the player does have all the power right now in this sport? They don't cave. Nico leaves and goes to UCLA. They bring in a transfer from UCLA by way of App State. Joey Aguilar was the starter at App State, transferred to UCLA in the spring or in the winter portal window, and then Nico hits the portal. Joey Aguilar and Nico Iamaleava basically just switch teams. Aguilar goes from UCLA to Tennessee. Iamaleava goes from Tennessee to UCLA. And Tennessee last season didn't have a bad year, right? Especially, again, when you look at the hand that they were dealt with the Nico Iamaleava situation hitting them so late in the cycle. Last season they start out hot with Syracuse and East Tennessee State, have the shootout overtime game against Georgia, but you ultimately finish the regular season with losses to Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt, thereby going 8-4. Last season here with the Tennessee Volunteers, and then you lose the bowl game to Illinois as well. So 8-5, final record for Tennessee. No Joey Aguilar this year. He tried to get an injunction and come back to Tennessee, did not get it. So you're going to have a new starting quarterback again. For what? You had Hendon Hooker in 22, you had Joe Milton in 23, you had Nico in 24, you had Aguilar in 25. So for the 6th straight season, Tennessee's going to have a new starting quarterback. So one of the biggest questions around Knoxville right now, who is the starting quarterback for the Tennessee Volunteers? Josh Heupel will get asked these questions at SEC Media Days, which is upcoming here in just a couple of weeks. We'll be there courtesy of our good friends over at Taco Casa. They do a great job helping us to travel across the Southeastern Conference and cover games regarding the SEC. So we're very appreciative of them for helping us get out to Tampa, Florida here in about a week? No. Yeah, about a week and a half. Little over a week. We'll be in Tampa for SEC Media Days. But those are the questions Josh Heupel's going to get. Hey, who's going to be your starting quarterback this season? Is it going to be redshirt freshman George McIntyre, who was the backup to Joey Aguilar last season, or is it going to be the true freshman Faison Brandon? Not Brandon Faison, Faison Brandon. CBS Sports' Matt Zenitz and Chris Hummer put out an article kind of recapping what they've seen and heard coming out of spring practice. I think this was earlier in the month of June that they put this out there, and they said probably Faison Brandon's got the lead right now when you look at that quarterback battle for the Tennessee Volunteers. And the fact that George McIntyre couldn't separate himself from a true freshman quarterback, I don't know that bodes well for his chances. Now, I will say, Tennessee, these two quarterbacks are both very, very good. I wonder what McIntyre brings to the table. Right, we're taking a look at the Tennessee offense right now, which is Josh Heupel's specialty side of the football here. I'm very, very interested to see what McIntyre brings to the table, what we'll kind of hear coming out of Knoxville in fall camp and these two fall scrimmages that they'll have before they get to their week 1 matchup here in 2026 against Furman. And again, I think you're going to see both quarterbacks against Furman. We cover Alabama on a daily basis in addition to the SEC, so a lot of the analogies we use are related to Alabama. This is not saying they're in the same place, but it's similar to what I think we're going to expect to see out of Alabama in week 1, right? A little bit of an inferior opponent, probably going to, beat the brakes off of them. Alabama, it's East Carolina. For Tennessee, it's Furman. You're going to see both Faison Brandon and George McIntyre in that football game. Yes, they will announce a starter prior to the matchup itself. I don't know that we're going to learn a lot, though, from that Furman game, right? I think whoever comes out of that week 2 game at Georgia Tech, I think whoever finishes that game is going to be the one that becomes the starting quarterback here for the Tennessee Volunteers this upcoming season. And then the cupboard's not empty. However, let me say this. The cupboard is not empty for Tennessee, whoever ends up being the starting quarterback for the Volunteers this season. Ethan Davis is back at tight end. When you look at what he did last season there in Knoxville, 257 yards, 2 touchdowns for Tennessee last season from Ethan Davis here at wide receiver. This is a very, very good wide receiver room, right? Braylon Staley is back as a starter in this offense. Mike Matthews is back as a junior starter now, so kind of one of those veterans on the offensive side of the football. You go out in the recruiting class and you go pick up the number 1 wide receiver in the 2026 recruiting class in Tristan Keys. TK Keys is what he goes by. TK Keys. I'm really, really high on that kid. If I had to put together a list of players that I think could take that next step and be premier playmakers for Tennessee as freshmen, could be a household name by the end of the season, somebody that we may not necessarily know right now, if you're not a diehard Volunteer fan, it's going to be TK Keys. And I understand 5-star receiver, we don't know him. What are you talking about? Normally with a lot of these 5-stars, they get on campus and then you kind of forget about them. Right? Because you're so excited about, hey, we got this guy out of the portal, this proven guy out of the portal. Hey, who's going to be our starting quarterback? That dominates a lot of the conversation. Oh, we returned Deshaun Bishop at running back, right? We're really excited to see what Deshaun can do in another season here in Knoxville, Tennessee. That you almost do start to forget about some of these 5-star guys. Don't forget about TK Keys. He's going to be a problem. And then you also returned Rodarius Jackson, the sophomore from last season, only finished with 90 yards, 9 receptions, but still think that Tennessee at wide receiver, there's a couple of things that I'm not worried about when it comes to a Josh Heupel-led offense. Actually, there's a lot of things I'm not worried about when it comes to a Josh Heupel-led offense. I'm not worried about pass blocking on the offensive line, who, by the way, they do return 4 out of their 5 preferred starters from last season, I believe. I could be wrong here. David Sanders did start last season for Tennessee. Wendell Moe Jr. is back as a redshirt senior. Sam Pendleton is back as a redshirt junior here for the Volunteers. Jesse Perry, a redshirt sophomore at right guard. This is the projected lineup that I'm seeing here. The only guy that you really had to bring in was Ori Williams, but he comes from LSU, who's typically known to have a pretty good offensive line. Maybe had a step back last season, but feels like Ori Williams was maybe one of the bright spots on that LSU offensive line a season ago for the Tigers as a reserve, right? I don't think he was a starter last year, but even still, you bring back a lot of guys in Knoxville there on the offensive side of the football. For Tennessee, the offense is going to be determined by how far your starting quarterback can take you, whoever it ends up being, whether it be McIntyre or Brandon there. You've got a veteran in Ryan Staub that can kind of help be a veteran presence, kind of one of those like player coaches type of ordeal where they can help coach the guy from the sideline rather than, Heupel, who he's so good at what he does. His offense is very, very difficult to stop at the collegiate level, but he's got so many other things he's got to work on because he's the head coach there in Knoxville, right? He's got to manage a lot of different things there in Tennessee that you don't necessarily want him to have to focus on sitting down with the quarterback, coaching them on the sideline. So you've got a good offensive coordinator that can do that. You've got Ryan Staub who can kind of help breaking down the film there on the iPad on the sideline, because now you have that in college athletics as well here. So whoever it ends up being, whether it be George McIntyre or whether it be Faison Brandon, I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about Tennessee in terms of a wide receiver perspective. They've always had some really, really good collegiate wide receivers, right? I think about, Jalen Hyatt in 2022. I think about Chris Brazzell last season, right? They normally have a really good wide receiver, somebody that is a big body but can also be a burner, or they've got one or the other, right? You've got a big body or you've got a burner. Where Tennessee thrives the best is when you put those two together and you've got either a big body and a burner, or you've got a guy who is big, massive. He's got the big wingspan. He's got the frame to go be a jump ball type of guy. And by the way, he's got 4.3 speed. I think TK Keys could be that guy. That's putting a lot of pressure on a young freshman, but I do think Tennessee has some very high hopes for the former 5-star prospect, former LSU commit too, by the way, was originally committed to LSU before flipping his commitment to Josh Heupel and the Volunteers. So the fact that LSU had him, Tennessee goes after him, guns after a guy like that, that lets you know, hey, he's really, really freaking good. If LSU goes out and gets him and people are still saying, nope, I want him. I want him to come to my campus. I want to flip him. And Tennessee ends up getting the job done there again. And I feel like I kind of just glossed over Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley there. These are two really good ball players, right? Don't let the shiny new toy cloud the fact that Braylon Staley is a really good player here. 837 yards and 6 touchdowns last season with Tennessee. Mike Matthews, 813 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you've got 2 800-yard receivers back in this offense. Chris Brazzell was top 2 in the SEC in terms of receiving yards last season. He's gone to the NFL, but you still have 2 very, very good players in Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley that are back. You introduce a 5-star shiny new toy in TK Keys there. And oh, by the way, in order to take pressure off of a young quarterback, you need a really good run game too, right? That's kind of where I'm thinking Tennessee's going to lean on early to while George McIntyre or Faison Brandon, while they get acclimated to, all right, I'm a starting quarterback. I got to go out there and the pressure's on me. In order to make his life as easy as possible and take some of that pressure off that quarterback, you need a really good run game. And that's where a guy like Deshaun Bishop comes in here. Last season with Tennessee, he was a 1,000-yard rusher, had 16 touchdowns there. That's just rushing yardage, by the way, here for Tennessee. He also had 15 catches for 135 yards last season as a receiver out of the backfield. Dwayne Morris is the backup running back here for Tennessee. I say backup. They'll rotate them both a good bit here. Dwayne Morris, 133 yards and a touchdown last season for the Volunteers. Also brought in Javin Gordon from Tulane, who had 516 yards and 5 touchdowns last season for the Green Wave. So feels like there's a lot of guys in this Tennessee offense that could go eat, and in a Josh Heupel offense that loves to put up points. They love to get vertical. They run a veer and shoot offense here, right? They love to get vertical. They love to put pressure on defenses by getting down the field as quickly and efficiently as possible. Feels like this is a Tennessee offense that is really catered to being able to go do that here when you look at Tennessee's offensive side of the football. Tennessee's offense in the books. Coming back on the other side of this break here, we'll go ahead and take a look at the Volunteer defense when you look at it here on the Deep South College Football Show, as we're off and running on a Friday edition here on the YouTube channel, as well as the radio side of things on Tide 100.9.
Well Chiropractic, the only third-generation chiropractor with over 28 years experience in Tuscaloosa. Call Tidwell Chiropractic at 752-7503.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. Sweltering sunshine, 93. Gentle southwest breeze, keeping umbrella handy for scattered afternoon showers and storms. They'll fade away this evening. We turn clear overnight, 75. Friday brings more hot, sunny weather with a high 94. Storms likely Saturday, leading to a wet Sunday with periods of heavy rain. More storms expected early next week. Richard DeWething at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 95 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Catch every game and every moment right here. This is your home of Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Back into the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. We took a look at Tennessee's offense in the previous segment here. Now we shift to the defensive side of the ball, which kind of felt like the side of the ball that Tennessee really had to rely on 2 years ago during their playoff run there, right? I think about a couple of games for Tennessee that the offense maybe wasn't hitting their stride, maybe wasn't on its A game at that point in time. And as a result, the defense had to come in and I don't want to say save the day, but the defense did have to come make some big plays here for Tennessee in 2024. 2025, the defense was all right. It wasn't, the best in the SEC, but it also wasn't the worst either, right? So kind of a middle of the pack SEC defense last season here. And they're led by the guy wearing number 7 on that preview screen right there, Mr. Arian Carter, a senior on this Tennessee defense. Last season, he had 76 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, a forced fumble, as well as 2 pass breakups. And so he's going to be kind of the key to that defense, right? Arian Carter, Tennessee's defense will go as far as Arian Carter can take them. That also means the front four is going to be really, really important for Tennessee this upcoming season here. Tyrese Weathersby at that left, at that defensive end spot there, had 24 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 1 sack last season here for Tennessee. Also, David Hobbs is back for another year in Knoxville after having 30 tackles, 3.5 for loss, 3 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, and he even swatted 2 passes there for the Volunteers last season here when you look at his his 2025 season with Tennessee. You brought in a couple of guys via the transfer portal. Xavier Gillum, a defensive tackle transfer from Penn State, was with Penn State during the James Franklin era, ended up leaving after he got fired last season and commits to Tennessee. He was one of 2 Tennessee commits one of 2 Penn State transfers that Tennessee got commitments from in the transfer portal. And we're going to talk about the second one here in a second here. But Xavier Gilliam, 15 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1/2 a sack, 1 quarterback hurry last season there in State College, Pennsylvania. The other was Chaz Coleman, a sophomore transfer from Penn State that ended up committing to Tennessee. He is unfortunately no longer with the program. I don't know what all happened with Chaz Coleman. We had Tucker Harlan on to talk a little bit about it during spring practice back in April. But there's been more development since then, and Pete Nakos of On3 reported that he and Tennessee have agreed to part ways. So I don't know what happened. I don't want to speculate. It seems maybe there was some homesickness in there. There may be a report or 2 out there. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to speculate on what happened with Chaz Coleman. But was it Penn State, committed to Tennessee, is no longer at Tennessee. Let's move on from that situation there. You did still bring in, though, Jordan Norman via Tulane by way of South Alabama, was originally at South Alabama, went to Tulane under John Summerall. John Summerall left, and now now Jordan Norman is at Tennessee, a Hoover, Alabama native, about an hour and a half down the road from where we do the show right here in Tuscaloosa. In 2025, he had 28 total tackles, 8 for loss, 6 sacks, and 2 quarterback hurries with the Tulane Green Wave. So you brought in a couple of guys here that have experience at the collegiate level. They've got that experience. It may not necessarily be, superstar power forward experience, but they've got experience, right? Jordan Norman, the redshirt junior from Tulane, he played in a playoff game last season. So that's really valuable experience that you've now got on this Tennessee defense here, who, by the way, they have a new defensive coordinator here. And it's and for a minute there, he was viewed as one of the best in the sport, and Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State when Ohio State won the national championship in 2024. He leaves Ohio State to become the highest paid coordinator in college football, becomes the highest paid coordinator in college football at Penn State last season. He's fired alongside James Franklin, and he's now sitting in Knoxville, Tennessee. Jim Knowles is going to be a really fun defensive coordinator to get to watch and see what he can do with this Tennessee defense in 2026. He did a really good job with Ohio State. I will add the caveat. At Ohio State, he had better athletes. Sonny Styles, right? Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, not to mention that 24 season that he was there. JT Tuimalioa at defensive end. Jack Sawyer at outside linebacker. So they had some dudes at Ohio State in 2024. Can he replicate that success at Tennessee in 2026 after having a bit of a down season in 2025, right? With Penn State? I don't know. But he is one of the better defensive minds in the sport. He's one of the best in the sport, actually, especially at the collegiate level. So what version of Jim Knowles do we get? Do we get the Penn State version or do we get the Ohio State version? Because I think that could drastically shift the perception of the Volunteers this upcoming season here when you look at Tennessee. And then in the secondary here, Idris Farouk. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If not, I do apologize. But Idris Farouk here had 76 total tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. By the way, also had a pick 6 last season here. He's going to be playing that strong safety spot. But you are bringing in a lot of new guys here in this secondary for Tennessee this upcoming season here, right? You're going to be having 3 new guys in the secondary. So let's talk about the other guy that is returning alongside Idris Farouk here. It's going to be Ty Redmond here for Tennessee is the other returning cornerback. And he started last season as a true freshman here for the Volunteers. 43 total tackles, 1 for loss, had 12 pass breakups. All right, so we know Ty Redmond is a very, very good cornerback in college football. Why did he have 12 pass breakups, right? Normally you think, okay, if he's got 12 pass breakups, that means he's being targeted a ton. Why is he being targeted so much? Has he shown a weakness? No, it's just because Colton Hood was on the other side of that defense, the Colorado transfer. Well, he's now off to the NFL, right? You also had Jermod McCoy that was on this roster last season. However, Jermod McCoy didn't play last year after suffering a knee injury in January. I think in that playoff game against Ohio State that they lost in 2024, the 24 season there. No, they didn't play Ohio State in January. They played Ohio State in December. So maybe I don't know what had happened, but all I know is Jermod McCoy tore his ACL and did not play for Tennessee in 2025. Colton Hood was kind of the big star at corner. Ty Redmond was getting a lot of reps as a true freshman starting for that secondary. So that's a battle-tested corner who, by the way, is probably going to make a sophomore jump here for the Volunteers. So good secondary for Tennessee here. The transfers, though, Kayan Lee, by way of Auburn here, 31 tackles with the Tigers last season and 4 pass breakups. He's another guy he's a transfer senior, right? He's a senior on this roster, and he got a lot of good reps at Auburn last season. He left when Hugh Freeze got fired. Again, it's another guy that I look at and I go, okay, veteran reps in college football. Now I'm looking at it here. Jordan Norman, all right, that's a veteran. Xavier Gilliam, that's a veteran. Arian Carter, we know how good Arian Carter is for Tennessee here. Kayan Lee, that's another veteran. Ty Redmond, yes, he's a sophomore underclassman, but he has a full season of starting experience under his belt here. And then you also have completely blanked over Amari Campbell here as well, another Penn State transfer by way of North Carolina. 103 tackles, 9.5 for loss, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, 1 pass breakup, 1 fumble recovery as well. So another veteran on this Tennessee defense. Seems like a lot of the really good players for Jim Knowles last season at Penn State, albeit his short tenure there. A lot of those good players now sit in Knoxville, Tennessee. So now I'm starting to feel, right, as we're kind of going through this here, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. If I'm a Tennessee fan, about this secondary. And our show is also broadcast on radio in Tuscaloosa on Tide 100.9. So they're absolutely hating. Like, our listeners on the radio are hating the fact that we are hyping Tennessee right now, and we're feeling really good about Tennessee defensively this season here. It's a tough schedule. I will say it is a little bit of a tougher schedule here for Tennessee this upcoming season, although strangely no Georgia. That's an odd thing to see, man. A Tennessee schedule without Georgia on it is very, very weird to see, but still got some tough games on that schedule. And the question marks around the quarterback position really, really start to hinder when you look at the ceiling of this Tennessee team, right? The floor, I don't know what it is, but the ceiling, I can't put a good floor and ceiling on Tennessee right now because of the fact that there's so many unknowns at the quarterback spot. Now, if whoever wins the job, George McIntyre or Faison Brandon, if they come out and I'd argue if you even get freshman Nico Iamaleava play. I didn't watch every game of him as a freshman, but I thought he looked good in spurts. If you get freshman Nico Iamaleava play, Tennessee can be a dangerous team this season. And God forbid if you're, a Tennessee opposer, right? If you hate Tennessee and they're getting handed Hooker level play out of him, out of whoever starts this season for Tennessee, that could be a playoff squad. It could be when you look at the veterans on this defense here. At nickelback here as well, to kind of wrap up the secondary for Tennessee here, you've got Quay Moss from Kansas State, 41 tackles, 5 for loss, 1 pass breakup last season as well. Senior transfer from Kansas State there. So a lot of veterans are hanging around this Tennessee roster right now. What does the schedule look like, though? And by the way, they've got new uniforms. Love them. And I love the release that Tennessee's been doing here. So we'll take a look at that here as well on the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
$9,000 for a free consultation, no fees unless we win. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be formed is greater than that of other lawyers.
Hey, this is Wyatt Fulton from Tide 100.9. Join us starting on July the 20th for SEC Media Days live from Tampa, Florida. Presented to you by Pearl River Resort and the Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino. We'll bring you live updates, press conferences, and interviews from all 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference at SEC Media Days 2026 from Tampa, Florida, presented by Pearl River Resort. Join us starting July the 20th.
Get a free oil filter and more during the Celebrate Free event at AutoZone, now through July 27th.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Hey, this is Wyatt Fulton from Tide 100.9. Join us starting on July the 20th live from Tampa, Florida for SEC Media Days 2026, brought to you by Taco Casa. We'll bring you press conferences, live interviews, and updates from all 16 teams in the Southeastern Conference at SEC Media Days 2026, presented to you by Taco Casa. Starting July the 20th, join us in Tampa, Florida for SEC Media Days 2026, brought to you by Taco Casa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And we're back here on the Deep South College Football Show on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. Real quick, before we jump into the schedule here, I do want to look. Tennessee has switched to Adidas for their apparel company. And as you can see in the video here on the YouTube side of things, these uniforms are clean. These things are nice, man. I love a good road white uniform here. And these uniforms are ice cold. They look really, really good for Tennessee. And then not to mention, they also unveiled blackout uniforms. We don't know the date of the blackout game yet. They said they would announce that at a later date. We know it's not Texas. They're checkerboarding Neyland for the Texas game. There it is right there. Let me go back here real quick. You see that white uniform there for Tennessee, that white, the white jersey, the white pants. I believe it's also a helmet as well, the white helmet. Yeah, there it is right there. I like the simplistic ideas, right? I like the simplicity of it all here. Just primary white color for everything, but then the accents are orange. The SEC patch is orange. You've got the orange powered T at the middle of the chest, balls across the top of the helmet here. This is a good looking uniform here for Tennessee in the road whites. I would assume these are just their regular road white uniforms. I don't know that they're going to do like orange pants or anything like that. Maybe it's a jersey combo here. And then you take a look at this next one here. This right here is their, I believe this is the orange uniform, which they will be wearing at home here when you look at the Volunteers home games here. So, again, they've partnered with Adidas there. There you go. You're starting to see some of the jersey. And it is white pants all the way around here, it looks like. So, I don't know. I kind of like it. It looks kind of good. Again, just very simple. The Power T, the SEC logo, and the Adidas patch are all white in addition to the white numbers there. I like the font they've got on these numbers here, too. I don't know, man. I don't know. Something about a simplistic uniform. I love it. I love, there you go. See, now you're getting a really good shot of the uniform there. Let me go back there. Getting a really good shot of that Tennessee uniform, courtesy of this video at Tennessee Athletics here as well. Yeah, very simplistic, but it looks really, really clean, really, really sharp. I like that look a lot. I like the simplistic look. And so, but they've unveiled new jerseys, new uniforms, the whole 9 yards. They've also got a blackout uniform too that looks, again, really, really clean. Everything's very simple, simplistic. But anyways, let's take a look at the schedule here for the Volunteers this upcoming season. We've got the schedule listed right here. Week 1 against Furman, like I had mentioned in the previous segment when we talked about the offense here for the Volunteers. You're going to see both these quarterbacks in this game against Furman, which is a 2:30 game on SEC Network Plus or ESPN Plus there. You're going to see both these quarterbacks there. I would assume, at least, if I were the one getting paid millions of dollars to make these decisions, I would put both these quarterbacks in this game. I'm not. I talk about it for a living. But even still, you want to see how they look in game situations, right? You can only simulate so much in practice because they've got the non-contact jerseys that they will be wearing in practice. So maybe you want to see them get hit a little bit, right? You want to see how they handle the adversity, all right? Maybe Furman does pop them in the mouth early. How do they respond to that adversity? And then Tennessee's going to go hang 70 on them. Then week 2 is a lot of fun. Tennessee and Georgia Tech. These two programs have played before in the ACC-SEC matchup here. I'm really excited for this one because this is going to tell me a lot about both of these programs. 6 o'clock on ESPN. Tennessee, new starting quarterback, new defense. What does it look like? Georgia Tech, you're replacing Haynes King. You're replacing Jamal Haynes at quarterback and running back respectively there. But you brought in Justice Haynes, right? The former Alabama and Michigan running back, originally from Beaufort, Georgia, if you're Georgia Tech there. At quarterback, you brought in Alberto Mendoza, the younger brother of Fernando, who just won a Heisman Trophy and went number 1 overall in the NFL draft. Can Alberto Mendoza replicate the success that Fernando had after transferring? Fernando transferred from Cal to Indiana. Alberto transferred from Indiana to Georgia Tech. Can you replicate that level of success? I don't know. But I like Georgia Tech a lot. That's going to be a really fun game. That's going to be one of those that I'm looking at, and it's okay, what's the trajectory of these two programs this season? Kennesaw State, that's a blowout. They're going to smoke Kennesaw State at 6:45 on the SEC Network. And then we roll into SEC play. Hey, Tennessee, understand you're still workshopping, a young quarterback who maybe didn't even start the first game. I don't know. He may only have 2 starts under his belt. Here comes the SEC favorite in Texas. 11 a.m., high noon in Neyland Stadium. That's going to be a lot of fun. October the 3rd, you roll into the month of October, Auburn, which they're not checkerboarding Neyland for Auburn. They're doing that for Texas. I want to say Auburn might be Salute to Service, or that's Kennesaw State. I can't quite remember. They had something for Auburn, though, I feel like. Anyways, you get Auburn and a new head coach in Alex Golish, who was the offensive coordinator at Tennessee in 2022 when they beat Alabama and had that phenomenal season. Kind of the resurgence of, okay, wait a minute, maybe Tennessee is something under Josh Heupel, right? So it's Alex Golish's first trip back to Knoxville as a head coach since leaving that program to become the offensive coordinator at South Florida. What's the reception going to be like for Alex Golish? I don't know. Should be a lot of fun, though, getting to see that game on October the 3rd. October the 10th, you go to Fayetteville, Arkansas. You lost this game last time you went there. Remember, 2024, you roll into Razorback Stadium with Nico Iamaleava, and Arkansas just randomly punches you in the mouth, handles you, and gets the job done, right? So it's very, very strange That place is a tough place to play. I will 100% admit that. But the trajectory of these two programs, I wouldn't be worried if I'm Tennessee, but I'm not in the day-to-day operations. I'm not a fan of Tennessee. I don't cover Tennessee, so I don't know. But Arkansas could be a sneaky one. That's got trap written all over it. If the Razorbacks are a little bit better, maybe than we anticipate them to be this season, they get that game against Tennessee at home. That's got trap written all over it because of who the next opponent is, right? You've had one road trip prior to that at Georgia Tech. You've had home games against Furman, Kennesaw State, Texas, Auburn. Your second road game goes to Fayetteville, Arkansas. A week later is the third Saturday in October. Alabama comes to Knoxville. Tennessee has not lost to Alabama since 2020 in Neyland Stadium. Alabama has not won in front of a full capacity Neyland Stadium. Because remember, COVID, stadium capacity was reduced to 30% or something like that. Alabama has not won in Neyland Stadium in front of a full capacity stadium in front of 100,000 fans since 2018. 2019, Alabama wins at home. 2020, Alabama wins in front of a limited crowd in Knoxville there. 21, Alabama wins at home. 22, 100,000 strong. Tennessee walks it off on the field goal. A knuckleball sends Tennessee fans all over the field and a goalpost into the river, which is where it should have stayed, by the way. That should have become a natural reef as a signifying piece of history for how big that moment was for Tennessee fans. But they pull it out of the water. It should have just become a natural reef at the bottom of the river there. So what does that game look like? I look at this season here for Tennessee, and I pinpoint certain games. I do this for every team, not just Tennessee, by the way. But I pinpoint certain games, and I say, okay, the ceiling is this. If you win all these games that we've circled as toss-up games, then okay, this is your ceiling. If you lose all the games that are quote-unquote toss-up games, this is your floor. Alabama's the first game that I look at and I go, that's a toss-up. In every game prior to this, I look at it and I say, okay, they're probably going to do this. They're probably going to do that. They're probably going to go out and beat Auburn. They're probably going to go out and beat Arkansas, but it's got trap written over it, right? They're probably going to go out and lose to Texas. Okay, valid argument. Alabama's a toss-up. I have no idea what to expect out of the third Saturday in October there on October the 17th. October the 24th at South Carolina. That's another one that if you beat Alabama, this has trap written all over it yet again, right? 22, you roll in, you're riding high, you feel like you're going to make the college football playoff, and then South Carolina just goes shot for shot with you until, unfortunately, Hendon Hooker goes down and South Carolina wins that ball game, right? What is this game going to look like? Are you licking your wounds because now you're a two-loss team and your back's against the wall, and now you got to go into the cockpit in Columbia, South Carolina during October, by the way. During Cocktober, you've got to go to Columbia, South Carolina and play the Gamecocks. Are they riding high? We talked about the Gamecocks yesterday. Are they riding high because they're feeling good in the month of October? Or are they licking their wounds because Cocktober wasn't really nice to them, right? What's Tennessee doing? Are they riding high? They're a one-loss team, only losses to Texas. They're riding high, a one-loss team, and they have playoff aspirations. Or are they licking their wounds because you lose to Texas, you lose a toss-up to Georgia Tech and Atlanta, you lose a toss-up to Alabama and Knoxville, and suddenly you're a three-loss team coming into that game against South Carolina. You roll into the month of November. Kentucky should be a win. I understand it's kind of a rivalry game up there. You should go out and handle Kentucky. That feels like a should-handle type of ball game there. At Texas A&M, that's another one that I look at, and what does A&M look like? Where's Marcel Reed in his development at that point? Because Marcel Reed's a very polarizing quarterback because of the fact that he put his, I always look at the South Carolina game when I start thinking about Marcel Reed, right? This is the same quarterback that put his team, this is a quarterback that put his team in a 30-point hole in against South Carolina at home, by the way. They were losing by 30 to South Carolina. On the flip side of that argument, this is the same quarterback that led his team back from that 30-point deficit to win the South Carolina game. What does Marcel Reed look like? Are we still getting the emotional roller coaster with him, or are we a little more stable? right? I'm okay when I think about quarterbacks. I'm okay if the peak maybe isn't sky high, as long as the valley's not in the dirt, right? Consistency is key. And your elite quarterbacks, the Bryce Youngs, the Joe Burrows of the world are, all right, my floor is that consistency level, but my peak is I never lost the peak, right? I can still hit the mountaintop without coming back down into the valley, right? So what does Marcel Reed look like? Are we hitting the mountaintop without coming down into the valley? Are we hitting the mountaintop and coming down into the valley? Or are we just a consistent quarterback? I don't know. But that's another key game that I'm going to look at, and that's a lot of pressure on Tennessee's DBs. Ty Redmond and the rest of the Tennessee secondary, they're going to have their hands full with Mario Craver and Ashton Bethel-Roman and Isaiah Horton, and the front four defensively, Arian Carter and some of those guys. They're going to have their hands full with Reuben Owens. Is Arian Carter are you going to have to spy Marcel Reed? That answer is yes, by the way. Are you going to have to spy Marcel Reed here with Arian Carter or Amari Campbell? How do you handle Texas A&M offensively? Now, defensively, and I think we're talking Texas A&M either Monday or Tuesday next week. I know we're coming up towards the end of the SEC here in our previews as we're getting ready for media days, but how do you handle Texas A&M? That's going to be key, and we'll talk the Aggies next week here on the program. LSU at home, Lane Kiffin's back in Knoxville. I don't know what that means. Last time that happened, that was a very odd situation. I'll put it nicely, when he was the head coach at Ole Miss, but now he's an even less liked guy because of the way he left Ole Miss and went to LSU. What does that look like? Where is LSU sitting? Are they the ones that are riding high and saying, all right, we've beaten, X, Y, Z. We've beaten this team, that team, and this other team here. What does LSU look like? Or are they licking their wounds saying, all right, season didn't go the way we wanted. Let's go play like we got nothing to lose. Because that's a dangerous team as well. Back against the wall, but if they're 2-loss, right? Back against the wall, they're playing tight. They're not loose. They're playing way too confined. That's the key for LSU this season, or that's the key against LSU this season here, right? When your back gets put against the wall, do you continue to play loose? Do you continue to play free? Or are you playing tight because you're scared of that third loss that knocks you out of the playoff? And then November 28th, I have no idea what this rivalry is called. I like to call it the Volunteer State Showdown, mainly because I like Showdown, Lone Star Showdown, right? I like that a lot there with the state of Texas. So Volunteer State Showdown. If there's a new name for it, or if there's an actual name for it, somebody drop a comment, let me know, or I'll just go research it after I upload the video here today. But at Vandy, you lost to them at home last season. Vandy finished 10-2. Little brother's got to stay little brother. You cannot let Vanderbilt come back out and suddenly they're starting to win games in this rivalry. And you're going to have to go into Nashville. Historically, not a tough place to play when you look at Vandy playing at home. Hell, when they beat Alabama and kind of announced their arrival to the world, we were at that game. 90% of the crowd was wearing Alabama crimson. There were very few Vanderbilt fans in that stadium. Now, that might change this season, right? But true freshman quarterback for Vanderbilt. What does that team look like with no Diego Pavia or Eli Stowers now? I don't know. I trust Clark Lee. I trust him to kind of get Vanderbilt ready to go, but your ceiling almost feels capped when you're starting a true freshman quarterback, unless it's a Trevor Lawrence, right? And I don't know. I don't think Jared Curtis is Trevor Lawrence. Again, no disrespect to him. I'm sure he's going to be a phenomenal player, and I hope he is, right? It's a lot more fun when the SEC is good at football. So I think he'll be good, but this is a really early season. This is really early to kind of push that envelope and try and put pressure on a true freshman quarterback. So we'll go ahead and take another time out here for the radio side of things, and then we'll get ready to wrap up the loose ends on the radio and get you ready for the game with Ryan Fowler and wrap up the stream as well here on the Deep South College Football Show.
West Alabama real-time news update from the Tuscaloosa Thread Newsroom.
A Winfield mother who knew her infant boy was abused, killed, and discarded, but did not intervene, has been handed 2 consecutive life terms in prison by a judge in Fayette County after she pleaded guilty to domestic violence and child abuse. Downtown Tuscaloosa's historic Bama Theater has landed a $75,000 state preservation grant to replace the building's windows and fund other updates. And a long-running project to widen US 11 near Vance is wrapped up.
This episode sponsored by Minky Couture. Fair warning, bring a Minky Couture blanket home and it may instantly become the most wanted seat in the house. That's the magic of Minky Couture. Minky Couture created the original soft Minky blanket, trusted for premium quality and custom styles. One touch and movie nights, naps, and cold mornings suddenly revolve around who got to it first. Shop now at minkycouture.com. That's Minky, M-I-N-K-Y, Couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E.com. Go to minkycouture.com and get your Minky Couture blanket now, before everyone in your house claims it is theirs.
When the world's biggest matches are on, it's the perfect excuse to get together with friends, enjoy every goal, every save, every celebration, and have a little fun. But this year, have fun and still remember the score. If you love vodka without the hangover or loss of control, check out RK Zero Proof Vodka. RK is redefining what alcohol-free can taste like. Since 2011, RK has delivered the familiar burn without the alcohol. 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 regrets. Drink differently. Get yours at rkbeverages.com.
Business Solutions at BofA.com/gamechangers. Bank of America, official bank of the FIFA World Cup 2026.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. Sweltering sunshine, 93. Gentle southwest breeze, keeping umbrella handy for scattered afternoon showers and storms. They'll fade away this evening. We turn clear overnight, 75. Friday brings more hot, sunny weather with a high 94. Storms likely Saturday, leading to a wet Sunday with periods of heavy rain. More storms expected early next week. Richard DeWething at the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 95 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back to the Deep South College Football Show. We're getting ready to wrap up the loose ends here as we talk a little Tennessee Volunteer football. Looking at the Volunteers schedule here this upcoming season here. I'll throw it back up again, and we'll go through this on a game-by-game basis here when I look at Tennessee this upcoming season for our record prediction here for Tennessee. Furman, they're going to beat the snot out of the Furman there, so I'm not worried about that game. At Georgia Tech, that's a toss-up. Kennesaw State, they're going to beat the snot out of them. Texas, that is a loss. Texas should be a buzzsaw this season here. I understand Neyland's tough. Fortunately for Texas, it's not a night game. It's an 11 a.m. kick, so you don't really have to deal with night Neyland there. They are going to checkerboard the stadium, though, and that gets those fans rowdy and ready to go there. Auburn, they should win that game. At Arkansas, has trap written all over it, but I think they should win that game. Alabama's a toss-up here. If the Tide are rolling, if the Crimson Tide is doing what we have seen from Alabama in the past there, that could be a problem. Or they could go into Neyland and lose that game like they have the last 2 times they've been to that stadium there. South Carolina is another one that I think they should win. Tennessee should win that game, but it's got trap written all over it, especially coming off the heels of an Alabama game there. If they beat Alabama, it's got trap written all over it. If they lose to Alabama, it almost feels like they're going to come out and South Carolina's get the bad end of a bludgeoning stick there when you look at that game against the Volunteers there. Rolling into the month of November, Kentucky, they should win that game. Texas A&M, that's a toss-up. That's another one that I consider to be a toss-up game here for Tennessee. Not saying they'll lose every toss-up game or win every toss-up game, but that's another one that's a toss-up. Same thing with LSU. It's a toss-up. If the Tigers are coming in, they're rolling, they're hot. They've been really, really prolific this season. I don't know how to feel about that. I don't know what to do about that ball game there. And then Vanderbilt there, they should win the Vanderbilt game. They should win that game. Simply because I think Vandy's going to be licking their wounds a little bit this season. It almost feels like they're going to come crashing back down to earth following the hype of the Diego Pavia era there in Nashville. Not saying that, they're going to suck this season. They're not going to make a bowl game, but it feels like 10-2 was kind of their ceiling at points last year. I know they made the Texas game interesting late, and they never really had a chance against Alabama in Tuscaloosa, but it feels like Vanderbilt's probably going to come crashing back down to earth this season. Again, not saying they're not going to make a bowl game, not saying they're going to suck. I think they could play in a lot of one-score ball games this season, but you're not sneaking up on anybody in 2026 at Vanderbilt. They know who you are. They know who Clark Lee is. They are ready to go when it comes to this Vanderbilt program here. You're not sneaking up on anybody. You're going to get everybody's full attention at this point. So if you lose all of your toss-up games, what did I say were toss-ups? Georgia Tech, Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU. If you lose all of your toss-up games, but handle your business everywhere else, you're 8-4. If you win all of your toss-up games and either handle your business or do whatever else you need to do there, that's as high as 11-1. I don't think it gets that far. But I do think Tennessee, who went, 8-5 last season, I think they take a small step in the right direction here this season. You're going to lose to Texas. Alabama's the toss-up. I leaned in favor of Alabama. I leaned in favor of Tennessee right now. New starting quarterback for Alabama. New offensive line, new starting quarterback. You're going to have to rely on the run game, and I don't know that Alabama's going to have that capability this season. Again, new starting quarterback at Tennessee. This could be a very low-scoring affair. Or the two new starters for Alabama and Tennessee, they're lighting it up. They're looking phenomenal, and we get another shootout type of matchup there in Knoxville. I don't know. But right now, I do lean in favor of Tennessee in that game there. So I've got the loss to Texas. I've got loss to Georgia Tech, I'm going to say. Beating Alabama, though. Losing to A&M and LSU. So as of right now, I have Tennessee going 8-4. But I do think they, win the bowl game because you'll have your starting quarterback playing in that game, getting ready for the next season here. Not a bad season. Josh Heupel is a good coach. I think he's a very good coach. And I think next year Tennessee could be a problem. But this season, I've got the Volunteers sitting at 8-4. That'll do it for us today here on the radio side of things. Big thanks to, I was going to say my producers. I don't have a producer. So we're not going to do that because I don't want to be. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. Big thanks to everybody who watches the show, though. Be sure to leave a like, leave a subscription, leave a comment if you want, and be sure to hang out and check us out every single weekday for more daily college football content. Coming up next on the radio side, Tide 100.9 is going to be The Game with Ryan Fowler from 2 until 6 p.m.